You've got the wrong number.
Where did you put Agnes, Billy?
Just don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
Black Christmas didn't just invent the holiday slasher. It ripped up the rule book and hid the pieces in the attic. A writer watched his killer vanish off the page. An Oscar winner was fired in tears. A psychic cast the final girl. And one late-night TV screening came so close to a real sorority massacre that NBC pulled the plug in fear. These are 20 weird facts about Black Christmas. And the bonus? Let's just say one comedy legend has watched this thing way more times than you have. Lock the doors. The calls are already coming from inside the house. Number 1. Before it was Black Christmas, it was a nastier little script called The Babysitter. Then, Stop Me. On the page, the killer was visible, the violence louder, the horror more straightforward. Then, Bob Clark stepped in. He didn't want splatter. He wanted dread. So he took A. Roy Moore's script, softened the gore, and did something radical for the time. He erased the killer's face. No big reveal, no mask coming off, no tragic backstory dumped in the last 5 minutes. Moore hated it at first. You write a monster, you want people to see him. But Clark held his ground. He kept the POV shots, kept Billy in the shadows, and let the audience's imagination do the dirty work. Decades later, it's that faceless presence, that feeling someone is there but never seen, that keeps the movie crawling under your skin. The scariest character in the film is the one the camera refuses to really show. Number 2. Billy didn't crawl out of nowhere. His madness has roots. The movie mashes up the old babysitter and the man upstairs, urban legend, with real Canadian killings, especially the murders in Montreal's wealthy Westmount neighborhood. Writers and historians have traced how stories of break-ins, phone harassment, and unsolved homicides seeped into the script. Billy becomes less a single person and more a collage of panics, whispers, and newspaper clippings from the 40s through the 70s. That's why he feels wrong in a specific way. He doesn't act like a movie maniac with a theme, a costume, and a catchphrase. He acts like the guy your parents warned you about, the one who never got caught, who maybe lived 3 streets over. The attic, the phone, the breathing, they all feel less like a horror trope and more like some true crime documentary that accidentally got filmed 20 years early. Number 3. Olivia Hussey didn't sign on because of the script. She signed on because of a psychic. Fresh off Romeo and Juliet, she could afford to be picky. But a fortune teller told her she'd make a successful film in Canada. And when Black Christmas came along, it ticked the box. She talked about that prophecy on set so much that some crew members rolled their eyes. This wasn't a calculated career move. It was a spiritual hunch. The twist? She's not even a big horror fan. The movie scared her so badly, she avoided watching it for years. So the woman holding the line in the film, calmly facing down a stalker and standing firm on her choices, was in real life an actress following a stranger's reading of her future into one of the bleakest Christmas stories ever shot. Jess exists because Olivia Hussey trusted a vision more than Hollywood logic and walked straight into a cult classic that still keeps her up at night.
Hello? 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 Oh, hell, not again. Billy? I'm sorry, you have the wrong number.
Number 4. Mrs. Mack almost came with an Oscar. Before Marion Waldman, the part was offered to Bette Davis. Bob Clark had based the booze-stashing house mother on his own aunt, a woman who hid liquor around the home like it was contraband. He imagined Davis, Hollywood royalty, fishing bottles out of toilet tanks, and talking to her cat while a killer breathed in the walls. She passed. Maybe it was the script, maybe the budget, maybe the idea of dying in a winch in the attic just wasn't her Christmas fantasy. So Waldman stepped in, and instead of a stunt cast legend, we got something weirder. A house mother who feels like a real burnt-out adult trapped in a student world. Every time she finds another hidden bottle, You're not watching camp. You're watching Clark's childhood in drag, his aunt, her secrets, and the quiet sadness of someone who knows the girls are safer with liquor than with whoever is lurking upstairs. Number 5. Phil was almost played by Gilda Radner. Before Saturday Night Live, before the sketches and the fame, she was cast in this low-budget Canadian horror movie as the smart, sardonic sorority sister. Then NBC called. They were building a weird little late-night show and wanted her on the ground floor. Radner had a choice: freeze in a Toronto attic with a killer, or gamble on a sketch show no one had heard of. She walked. Andrea Martin slid into the part with barely a month to spare, and history split. In one timeline, Gilda becomes a horror icon, her face plastered on Black Christmas posters. In ours, she becomes a comedy legend instead, while Martin quietly builds a cult, following among horror fans who love Phil's dry, grounding energy. Black Christmas lost a future SNL star, but it gained a performance that fits its offbeat, Canadian weirdness perfectly.
You think it's my fault, don't you? Barb, stop it. Don't shit me. That's what you're all thinking. Why don't you just come right out and say it? You think that I drove her away?
Number 6. Lieutenant Fuller's calm stare is hiding a tragedy you never see. The role was supposed to belong to Edmund O'Brien, an Oscar-winning heavyweight. He flew to Toronto, checked into his hotel, and then everything went wrong. He got lost walking the city. He forgot which room was his. On set, lines slipped away, directions didn't land. Clark and the crew realized they weren't watching a bad rehearsal. They were watching the early, brutal signs of Alzheimer's. Night shoots in the cold could actually hurt him. In one of the hardest conversations of his career, co-producer Jerry Arbide had to let O'Brien go. The actor cried. He knew what it meant. Within hours, John Saxon was on a plane, costumed, and suddenly the new face of authority in the film. So when Fuller walks through the house, organizing the search, you're watching a character born from heartbreak, standing in a place that another man had to lose to protect his own health.
Nash!
Yes, sir.
Look, I can't get through to Jennings. I want you to call that girl. Nash, be calm. Don't tell her that the guy is in the house. Just tell her to put down the phone and walk straight out the front door.
Number 7. The Christmas in Black Christmas is mostly fake. Toronto didn't deliver the winter wonderland the script demanded. When the cameras rolled, there was barely any snow on the ground. Art director Karen Bromley turned into a one-woman snow patrol. She would wake up early and guard the few patches of real snow, yelling at crew members if they stepped too close. For everything else, they called in a fire truck, not for water, for foam. The same flame-retardant foam used on runways was sprayed across lawns and porches to create thick drifts. It looks beautiful on camera, soft and powdery, perfect for carols and corpses. But in reality, cast and crew were standing ankle-deep in industrial sludge that stuck to boots and clung to equipment. Every cozy winter shot you remember is a carefully protected illusion, a crew literally manufacturing Christmas so the horror could feel festive.
You see, I was supposed to meet my daughter here at 1 o'clock. It's 1:30 now, and she's still not here. Her name's Claire Harrison. Do you know her?
Claire Harrison?
Yeah, I think so.
Number 8. When you see through Billy's eyes, you're actually strapped to a man named Burt Dunk. The cameraman knew regular rigs wouldn't work. Tripods can't climb trellises. Dollies don't crawl into attics. So he built his own contraption, a body brace that locked the camera to his chest but kept his hands free. Every time Billy scales the side of the house, every time he jerks through the hall or lunges in the attic, that's Dunk moving, half stuntman, half operator. For Claire's murder, he mounted the plastic bag over the lens and performed the strangulation while Lynn Griffin lay still, holding her breath, face sealed in real plastic between takes. No CGI, no safe cutaway. Just an actor with strong lungs and a cameraman willing to turn himself into a human monster rig. Those sickeningly intimate shots feel like you're inside the killer's skull, because in a way, you are, riding on his shoulders with nowhere else to look.
Who is that? Who is it?
Number 9. The phone calls sound like a demon chorus, because that's almost what they are. Bob Clark didn't settle for one actor screaming. Composer Carl Zitrer layered multiple voices, Nick Mancuso, Clark himself, and others, on top of each other. Sometimes you hear them one by one, sometimes all at once. To make his main voice sound truly wrong, Mancuso performed upside down, literally standing on his head, so his chest compressed and his breathing warped. On set, Clark would shout obscene lines from off-camera, while the actresses were on the phone, feeding them live filth, so their reactions were real. What ended up in the mix is not just yelling, it's gasps, sobs, baby talk, snarls, and whispers, all chopped and reassembled into one fractured personality. That's why the calls never settle into a single Billy voice. They feel like a whole broken family jammed into one mouth. And by the time the line goes dead, it feels less like a prank and more like a possession.
Pretty big cunt. Pretty big cunt. I mean, you're pretty big. I'm like a tuning fork, baby.
Listen, you pervert, why don't you go over to Lambakai? They could use a little of this.
You big cunt.
Number 10. The score sounds like a haunted music box because Carl Zitrer tortured a piano. Instead of hiring a big orchestra, he opened up the instrument, tied forks, combs, and knives to the strings, and started scraping, plucking, and striking. He recorded the results and then slowed the tape by hand, bending notes out of tune until they sounded sick. Those high, glassy tones you hear, hovering over the house like a bad dream, aren't synthesizers. They're the guts of a piano being physically abused. The music doesn't rise and fall like a normal score. It creeps, it clinks, clanks, and vibrates like the house itself is trying to speak. Even when nothing is happening on screen, the soundtrack keeps whispering that something is off, that something is upstairs, that Christmas has curdled into static. It's not background music, it's weaponized noise, turning every quiet hallway into a nervous breakdown. Number 11. Billy has a full origin story. You just never see it. Years after the film's release, Bob Clark finally admitted he knew exactly who Billy was. In his head, Billy was an abused child who later abused his little sister Agnes, killed his parents, and kept Agnes imprisoned until she escaped. It's a whole horror movie inside the horror movie, but Clark made a brutal choice. He kept it off screen. No flashbacks, no exposition dump, no detective pinning clippings to a wall and reading it aloud. Instead, you get fragments in the phone calls, names, guilt, half-remembered nursery stories muttered in rage. It's the kind of backstory another director would build a franchise on. Clark used it as a ghost, shaping the performance, but never spelling it out. That's why Billy feels so deep and empty at the same time. There's a full biography behind him, and the movie slams the file cabinet shut in your face.
Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
Number 12. On Black Christmas, the crew didn't just stand behind the camera. They started filling the house. Money was tight. Casting extras for every taxi driver, cop, and snowmobiler added up fast. So Bob Clark did the cheapest thing possible. He pointed at the people already on payroll. Co-producer Jerry Arbide, congratulations, you're driving the cab. The property master, you're the guy on the snowmobile. Costume designer, production supervisor, grab a coat, your background now. Between setups, people would drop their tool belts, walk into frame, deliver a line, then run back to reset props. Most viewers never notice. To them, it's just a lived-in world. But once you know, it turns every side character into a little Easter egg. The people making the movie had to literally walk into it to keep the budget alive. In a film about a killer hiding in plain sight, half the town is the crew in disguise. Number 13. In Canada, Black Christmas was a hit. Macabre newspaper ads counted down the days, and audiences showed up for a mean little holiday shocker. In America, the studio panicked. Warner Brothers worried that Black Christmas would make people think of blaxploitation, not blood in the snow. So they retitled it Silent Night, Evil Night, and even dressed some sets with American flags to make it feel less Canadian. The result? Confusion. No one knew what the movie was, and the title sounded like a dozen other TV horror specials. The film flopped, quietly shuffled through theaters, and forgotten. Only later, when they put the original title back and home video dug it out of the attic, did Black Christmas start to look like the ancestor of every holiday slasher to come. The studio tried to hide its identity to make it safer. All they did was bury it long enough for it to come back as a legend.
Peter, what kind of a game are you playing? I thought you wanted to talk, so why don't you quit attacking me and we'll try to have a rational adult conversation?
Number 14. Even in censored form, Billy's mouth got him in trouble. When the film crossed the Atlantic, the British Board of Film Classification took one listen to the phone calls and reached for the scissors. The UK release got an X, and some of the dirtiest lines were cut or trimmed, including the infamous C word that would later become almost casual slang in British conversation. In 1975, hearing it scream down a phone line at terrified women was a different story. Early UK viewers got a slightly quieter Billy, still obscene, still deranged, but blunted in places. For years, fans there had no idea they were watching a toned-down version. Only with later uncut releases and restorations did the full, vile soundtrack reach them. Black Christmas didn't just challenge censors with violence, it challenged them with language that felt like an assault before a knife ever appeared.
Where did you put the baby, Betsy?
You've got the wrong number.
Where did you put Agnes, Billy? Billy.
Look, I'm telling you, you have the wrong number.
What your mother and I must know is... Billy!
Number 15. Black Christmas nearly became a real-world headline. In January 1978, NBC planned to air the film on TV under a new title, Stranger in the House. Then, 2 weeks before the broadcast, Ted Bundy walked into the Chi Omega sorority at Florida State University and turned fiction into reality. 2 women murdered, others brutalized. A quiet house turned into a crime scene that looked sickeningly close to what Clark had filmed. Suddenly, a movie about a killer in a sorority didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like exploitation. After pressure from Southern affiliates and concern from Florida's governor, NBC pulled the movie from their schedules in that region and swapped it for Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. Black Christmas gained a new, ugly aura, not just as a scary film, but as the movie networks were afraid to show because reality had caught up and sprinted past it.
God, please help me.
Oh, look, Peter, don't cry. We can straighten things out. There's nothing to get so upset about.
Number 16. In 1974, Jess's abortion storyline was a grenade. Most horror films of the time treated sex and pregnancy like moral traps. Women who stepped outside the lines were punished, often brutally. Jess is different. She calmly tells Peter she's getting an abortion. She doesn't plead, doesn't apologize, doesn't frame it as tragedy. It's her body, her future, her call. Peter rages, threatens, smashes a piano, but the movie itself never condemns her choice. The horror that follows isn't cosmic payback for her decision. It's the result of a killer the system fails to catch, and a boyfriend who can't handle not being in control. Years later, critics looked back and saw it clearly. Black Christmas accidentally made one of the first truly feminist final girls, not by speechifying, but by letting her exist without punishment.
How did the recital go?
How do you think it went?
Peter, what kind of a game are you playing? I thought you wanted to talk, so why don't you quit attacking me and we'll try to have a rational adult conversation?
Number 17. The ending you know isn't the ending the studio wanted. Executives pushed for a neat twist. Their pitch: Jess wakes up in the hospital, seemingly safe. Claire's boyfriend Chris sits beside her, comforting her. Then he leans in and says, "Agnes, don't tell them what we did," and kills her. Billy solved. Mystery closed. Roll credits. Bob Clark hated it. To him, that kind of answer killed the fear. He fought for something colder. Jess sedated in the house. Friends dead around her. The cops leaving. The attic still occupied. The phone ringing on and on as the camera drifts away. No reveal. No closure. just the awful realization that the killer was never caught and might already be dialing again. He won, and that last slow pullback turned a simple slasher into one of the most haunting finales in horror history.
No, not since last night.
Well, her father came to pick her up at 1 o'clock today and she didn't show. So he went down to the police station with Phil and Bob.
Number 18. Black Christmas didn't just influence Halloween, it almost was Halloween. After the film came out, John Carpenter asked Bob Clark if he'd ever do a sequel. Clark casually sketched an idea. Billy is captured, locked in an institution, and years later he escapes and goes back to his hometown to kill again, this time on Halloween night. Clark even joked he'd call it Halloween. Years passed. Carpenter made his own movie about an escaped killer coming home on October 31st, and a genre exploded. When people later pointed out the similarity, Clark refused to play the victim. He said Carpenter didn't steal anything, that his offhand sequel idea was just talk. He gave the younger director full credit. Still, it's hard not to see Black Christmas as the shadow prequel to one of horror's biggest franchises, the quiet phone call before Michael Myers ever put on a mask.
Who's this?
That's a friend of Claire's, a very nice young man from the town, Chris Hayden.
I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys.
Number 19. For a movie that struggled in theaters, Black Christmas has a strangely active afterlife. Fans didn't just rewatch it, they built on it. In 2021, a crowd-funded short called It's Me, Billy dropped online, pitching itself as the true sequel. It follows Jess's granddaughter, still haunted by those calls, and brings the attic horror into a new generation. A second chapter followed, turning a one-off tribute into a mini-franchise of its own. At the same time, a 300-plus page making-of book dug into every scrap of production history, while labels rolled out new 4K restorations to mark the film's 50th anniversary. Billy might be fictional, but his legacy lives in real bank statements, Kickstarter pages, and shelves full of icy green Blu-ray cases. Bonus fact: Black Christmas didn't just scare horror fans. It caught a comedy legend off guard. Years after the movie, Olivia Hussey met Steve Martin. Naturally, she assumed he loved her for Romeo and Juliet, the tragic, beautiful classic everyone studied in school. Instead, he smiled and told her his favorite performance of hers was Black Christmas. Not only that, he said he'd seen it over 20 times. Think about that. Steve Martin, king of absurd, gentle chaos, sitting through one of the bleakest Christmas slashers again and again like it's a holiday tradition. For Hussey, it was a curveball. For the film, it was proof. If even one of the biggest comedy stars on earth is quietly obsessed with this nasty little Canadian horror story, then somewhere along the way, the movie stopped being a cult oddity and became part of the unofficial cinema canon of Christmas nightmares. The strangest thing about Black Christmas is how hard it tried not to be a hit, and how stubbornly it stuck anyway. The script was rewritten, the title was changed, the ending was threatened, the TV premiere got yanked by real-world horror, and international censors literally cut its voice to pieces. It should have faded. It didn't. Instead, it turned into a secret handshake. Directors cite it. Fans pass it around. Remakes chase it and miss. And every December, somewhere, someone decides to skip the cozy classics and cue up the one where Christmas lights don't mean safety, just better visibility for whoever's watching from the attic. If this movie ever ruined the sound of a ringing phone for you, let us know in the comments. Tell us which horror classic we should tear open next, because as long as there are films hiding monsters in their walls, we'll be here, answering every call that starts with, "It's me, Billy."